Now, welcome to today's virtual company showroom. And today we're delighted to be traveling virtually to Eindhoven, where we will be hosting ASML. So ASML is a world leader in the manufacture of advanced technology systems for the semiconductor industry. And we're joined, I'm delighted to say, by two CERN alumni who are currently working there. So we have Giordano Catani, who is a senior procurement account manager. So Giordano has 10 years of professional experience in the semiconductor industry, during which he's held multiple positions working for two of the most important companies in the sector. And we also have Steph Janssens, who's group lead for electrostatics and tribology, who started working in ASML in 2015. You're going to find out more about them. And then we're also delighted to be joined by Renee Malone, who's a talent sourcer with 12 years of recruitment experience and working with the ASML as a talent sourcer since June of 2021. So, ladies and gentlemen, the floor is yours.
So, yeah, thank you everyone and welcome to this ASML Virtual Company showroom. We would like to start maybe with first an introduction of Renee. So, Renee, I will leave the floor to you.
So thank you all for joining us. Brief introduction. I always personally find is the least interesting, so I'll go through it quickly. I studied neuropsychology in Nijmegen, and I started my first job during the financial crisis. And since I didn't know exactly what to do, I ended up in a recruitment agency and loved the recruitment part. And that is what I kept doing and what I am still doing today. I moved to Eindhoven with my husband for ASML, where he got a job, and I changed jobs to Brunel myself and started supplying staff to ASML. So it was my first introduction to ASML. But I always had a dream, and it was to work for Philips, which I did 2 years later. I landed my dream job as an end-to-end recruiter for IT in Royal Philips. I did that for 5 years, and due to some changes in the organization, I also decided I needed a change, and I went back to consulting, and I learned that that is not for me. And fortunately, I got headhunted by ASML for a talent sourcing role. So talent sourcing is probably more familiar with you guys as headhunting. So that is what I do today. And I do that mainly for the data space. So data engineering, data science, and everything related to that. I have another couple colleagues who are responsible for hardware and for software. And together we cover the entire enterprise that is ASML. So personally, I grew up in Arnhem, a small town in the east of the Netherlands, but I have roots in the Anjou region in France because that's where my dad is from. And I have a connection to County Clare in Ireland because that is where my husband is from. As you can see in the bottom left corner, I have a beautiful family, 2 girls, and who really enjoy spending time with. If anybody knows the middle symbol, feel free to guess it and let me know. It is my favorite book series, and I furthermore, how can I not, as a French person, love good food and love scouting out new restaurants in new cities. So that's a little bit more on the personal side. Now I'd love to introduce ASML. And I think we immediately start with a video.
Yep.
So that is, in a nutshell, what ASML is. But let's go to the beginning of ASML. ASML started as a joint venture by Philips and ASMI. So you can say it's a spin-off. And it is really a humble beginning. We often joke it started in a leaky shed with just 31 people who thought that they could make the technology work. And they did, but it did take a decade of perseverance to break into this market. And all major chip makers use our technology. Now, our technology doesn't make chips, so we don't make a machine that makes microchips. We make a machine that is part of a vital part of the steps to make microchips. And we are by far Europe's biggest tech company with an annual R&D budget of shy of 2.5 billion. So we're really big, and until quite recently, not very well known. We have offices in 60 cities in 16 locations worldwide. Our headquarters are in the Netherlands, but we have recently acquired ASML Berlin, for instance. We have offices in France, in Germany, in Dresden, next to Berlin, for instance, in Ireland, where there's another fab currently being built. We have several offices in the US, in China, and you can see, though, that by far the largest amount of employees is located in Europe, with, of course, the Netherlands standing out. So who are our customers? Samsung and TSMC, probably very well known, but also Intel, a demanding customer, Micron, and a few smaller that you would probably not have heard of. But you can see that it is well spread out throughout the world. In Europe, I think IMEC would be quite familiar as a name. And I know Intel also has a location in Ireland. Mm-hmm. But that's our customer base. You can see all the big names are there.
Okay, so now.
And Giordano. Now that they know more about ASML, maybe they'd like to know more about you and what you do for us.
Yeah, sure. I would be happy to share my education and career path with all of you. So my education has been pretty linear. So I'm a physicist as a background, and I've always been studying in the same university in Rome, Tor Vergata, where I did my bachelor, master, and I finally got my PhD in 2011 in experimental particle physics. I've been always working on mainly on detector physics, especially for my master degree. For my PhD, I also did on the side, let's say, but then it became actually the main subject on my thesis, the measurement of the forward-backward asymmetry of the muons, of the Z boson in the muon channel. So a very broad, let's say, experience from detector to, let's say, real physics, right? So already at the time I was at CERN, I started, let's say, my professional career as a research associate with a couple of grants. The first one was just for 4 months from the Marie Curie Action kind of grant. So very 4 intense months on working on Monte Carlo simulations for minimum bias events. Then I moved on to another grant the year after for 1 year now with the INFN, the Italian National Institute of Nuclear Physics. That was a kind of a fellow position just for 1 year. And then after that, I moved from the academia to the industry, and my first step into the industry was through Intel in Ireland. It's based in Dublin. So that was the first experience in the industry, and I started as a process engineer in the dry etch department, and then I moved on the last year. 1 out of 5 years I spent in total in Ireland in Intel to work as a yield engineer. And just to mention a few things, maybe you're already starting to see it from the timeline. I moved from a very, let's say, technical kind of jobs where, a kind of the specific skills like physics, computer analysis, data analysis, and stuff like that are really needed, into something more, a little bit more broad and still technical, still focused on delivering, let's say, technical results, but with an eye on also a little bit more broad kind of skills and experience, like, for example, management of technicians when I was used to work as a process engineer, or management of stakeholders when I used to work as a yield engineer. So after Intel, I moved forward to something that was a little bit more closer to my background in research, and then I joined ASML in 2017 as a design engineer. And that position didn't last long, even if formally was two years, because I became immediately team lead, and then afterwards I liked the kind of leadership roles that I used to have in that context. And just to mention, just to link also my experience to what René just mentioned about the IMEC. When I was a design engineer and also team lead, I used to work a lot with IMEC in Leuven in Belgium. So I like, as I said, the leadership career, and also there, my growth was kicking in the sense that, I expanded even more my competence and skills towards managing a team, managing people, and also working together with them for their career path. And my last position now, a couple of years from already in, is as a procurement account manager, and I work a lot in with our German partner Zeiss, I'm basically responsible for the for the let's say relationship and the procurement side of a specific part to be sourced from them. On aside, I also have, how can I say, additional activities, I call them, or side hustles. So I started from the CERN time to work. Was like to enjoy the time as a CERN guide for Italian groups who are going around CERN facilities. And then I've done always other things, right? So I've been a founder of a small association in Italy. I've been treasurer for that association, and I've also been co-manager since 2018, July 2018, of the Eindhoven group of the CERN alumni that is actually covering the whole Netherlands. And more recently, I also joined another association in Italy, Copernicani, and I got a chance also to be on a couple of advisory boards, one from the School of Physics of the University of Salerno, and at the start from the start of 2023, I've also been asked to join the advisory board of the CERN alumni. So this is just to say that, as also to encourage everyone, to use this as a possible example of career path and side hustle path, let's say, and also to stress how much networking is important in everyone's job. So not only technical things, not only leadership positions, but also network with people and get to know them. And that concludes my introduction. So I move on to Steph.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning. My name is Steph Janssens. I'm from Belgium, and I started my academic career in the TU Delft, where I studied aerospace engineering, focusing mainly on space system engineering, and I was then building test setups for satellites and microthrusters. And one of my colleagues came back from an internship at CERN and said, "Steph, this is a place for you. You should go there." So I applied for a PhD position, and a little bit to my surprise, I was selected. So in 2009, I moved to CERN to work on the compact linear collider, and my main assignment there for my PhD was to look into the stabilization and nano positioning of the quadrupoles. So how can we now get them all aligned over the 48-kilometer tunnel and make sure that they don't vibrate too much while the beam was going through. So I worked on that for my PhD, and then I followed that up during my fellow. You can click my fellowship, where we built a module to prove the proof of concept that this could work, working with geophones, feeding back the signals and making sure that the positioning stayed where we wanted it to be. And then, of course, I needed to decide what to do. Should I stay at CERN or should I do something else? And I decided, okay, let's go into industry. I was always very interested in the industry, and I got the chance to go to the PhD masterclass. I think you will learn something more about it later. But it's basically a 3-day event where ASML invites 60 PhD students over to ASML for a 3-day course and workshops, and there I got convinced to join. And I started in 2015 as a researcher, first on immersion lens technology. How can we now scan faster with the bubble under the lens? It was very interesting and quite the big engineering challenge. I moved on to wafer tables as an architect. So there I was responsible for the system requirements for what you see here on the bottom is where we put the wafers on. Is basically a very flat, optical flat disc, which is our reference for our wafer. And my challenge there was how can we now make it as low friction when we put the wafer down, so we don't have any XY tension in the wafer when we put it down and miss layer to layer any interconnections. But also make sure that it doesn't wear, so that we're still in the depth of focus, which is some tens of nanometers. So that was quite an interesting challenge where we really needed to look at how can we make it a sort of switchable friction, but also have the table not wear more than tens of nanometers over a 7-year lifetime. So that's a quite interesting challenge. Then I decided I wanted to be a group lead, and I got the chance to become the group lead of the DUV optical column mechatronics, where I was also responsible for a function of the machine, which is basically just a part of the machine, which we call the REMA, which is a shutter-like system, moving at very high speeds. There really I went into the development engineering side of ASML, where I went through 2 cycles of product delivery to make the next generation of machines. So it was very interesting. It was much closer to the customer than I had been at research. So I really learned how the business side of ASML worked in that position. And then since 2022, I went back to research. So I became a group lead there for tribology and electrostatics, and it's basically back to my roots of the wafer table and the wafer clamp, where I now have a group of 23 researchers continuing the work that I started in. I was also thinking, what can I now tell you as CERN alumni about my journey here, and then what could be interesting, and what do I think was the most interesting part? And I think that was my growth journey here at ASML. So when I came in, I was a researcher, mainly focused on the technical, as most of us are, I think. And of course, you get a lot of opportunities to learn. We also have an ASML Academy, where you can really deepen your technical knowledge. We divide that through competences, and they give courses on different topics. But then when I became an architect, I needed to learn how to get a system view. So how does the machine now work? What is important? What kind of interfaces are important? What kind of specifications and tolerances can we need? So there I learned a lot through the architect development program, where you really learn how to do these things, and not only the hard skill part, but also the soft skill part. How do I now get my customers in line, that they know what they need, and I know and can tell the team what they need to do. And then I evolved more and more into leadership, and there ASML I think is also quite good in providing you help in growing on the soft skill part. And this is not only for managers but also for technical people. So maybe one thing to mention is not only manager and project leads grow both in skill set and salary, but you can basically grow to similar job grades as a manager, as a project lead, as a technical person. And for all of them, there are courses and help available to make yourself grow. How do I now have a difficult conversation? How can I now drive innovation? Those kind of things. And now as a group leader, I get quite some help also to set up high performing teams. And so how can I get my group now to the top of their abilities and working together? So that's a bit about my growth.
Yeah, so you now have had 2 examples of what it is like to be in ASML, what kind of career you can follow. But of course, it is your career. It can be very individual. So I'd like to share with you a little bit of information in general about how ASML works and what we can do for people's careers. So next slide, please. So our vision is to enable groundbreaking technology to solve some of humanity's toughest challenges. And that we do that, we translate that vision into a mission that is, together with partners, we provide leading patterning solutions that drive the advancements of microchips. Alongside, we have 3 core values. Our core values are challenge, collaborate, and care. And this is a natural, these are natural core values for us because they come from this, challenge. Tell us we can't do it, and we'll prove you that we can. How we broke through after a decade into this market, really challenging the assumptions of other people. So we challenge the boundaries and we question the status quo. And we continuously refine our ideas, our processes, and we push technology forward. I think I've heard it said, and correct me if I'm wrong, Giordano and Steph, that we are what kept Moore's Law alive. So at some point, people thought it wasn't possible, and we proved everybody wrong. But how do we do that? We can only do that through strong collaboration. And it means tapping into our collective potential and also collaborating strongly with our partners. Our customers aren't just customers, they're truly partners in moving our technology forward. And we learn from each other, and we approach to deliver the best results by sharing that knowledge. And we create solutions that are optimized for ASML as a whole, but of course also for our customers. And care. Care is, I would say, our newest value that comes with our exponential growth. And we are now an industry leader, and we have to act with integrity and respect. And we realize that our impact extends beyond the technology to people, society, and the planet. And having said that, I'm just really happy to be able to share that we have a foundation that donates money, for instance, to organizations that help students who are neurodiverse. We have a community engagement club who keeps being in touch with, for instance, residents of the Veldhoven area who are greatly impacted by our building strategy, so that we make sure that the community is well informed and involved in our future. But this is also something that we are very strongly feeding, and Steph already mentioned the high-performing teams. It is about caring as well for our teams, for our people. So when we look at ASML, at your careers, obviously, one of the things I put in first is software. We are very well known as a hardware company, but our software also makes the difference. It would be impossible for customers to manufacture the way they do and smaller than they do now without the software we develop. And we develop software in many different languages: Java, C++, Python, C#, .NET, and of course, a lot is still built in MATLAB. And you can see here 2 different software roles that would be suitable for people somewhere mid-career already: process integrator software and C++ software design engineers. Now, we have many, many, many different departments. So off the top of my head, I'm not quite sure which departments they are, but we have business line applications, we have on product performance, we have metrology, they all make software. Then a second club that is probably slightly less well known, that we have a lot of employees with that background, is material science and chemistry. So they require control of complex chemistry, and our multi-million euro machines would be useless without precise monitoring. Now, these roles are often also found for people with a background, for instance, in mechanical engineering. But if you're a bit further ahead in your career, you could apply as a group lead in material science and chemistry, for instance. And if you're starting your career and you have a material science or chemistry background, you could, for instance, join us as a flow analyst for immersion. Probably more familiar people with an electrical engineering background can join us. to build our state-of-the-art intricate machines. And you can join as an architect or as a test and measurement engineer, as a process engineer, MATLAB. And we have roles both in manufacturing, operations, and of course, development and engineering. So now physics. This is why we're here. Physics is at the heart of everything we do at ASML, and we have split it up into a separate part on our website on optics as well, because our optical systems are, of course, very impressive and very important. So I've included 2 job opportunities for you here, researcher camera and detectors and integrator wafer stage sensor cleaning. Both of these roles are in our research and development department. But of course, there is many, many, many more, because as a physicist, you of course also have the opportunity to join as a data scientist. You can start your career flying, literally, if you want to join and do system install. Please also experience that part in the field. If your passion is to travel, there is no better role than that. You'd be away from home 75% of the time, and learning about new cultures. So there's just a lot of opportunities for physicists, but the same goes for mechanical engineers. Mechanical engineers can work in our factories, they can work in our research department, they can work in our sourcing and supply chain department. We have a lot of roles available for mechanical engineers. Of course, our service department, customer support, which is not at all like what you imagine, but which is really cutting edge and really helping customers and putting out fires. It's a very important department at ASML as well. Yeah, and you can be a creative problem solver. You'll design, build, and test exceptionally high performance systems. Again, you can join as a flow analyst, but as I said, you can join as a production engineer, as a manufacturing engineer, as a system install engineer, applications engineer, you name it, there's a role for you as a mechanical engineer. And mechatronics, we have hundreds of sensors, actuators. It's a playground for a mechatronics engineer. You can join as architect. And again, all of the other roles I mentioned before are also really great opportunity for a mechatronics graduate to join us. And what I think is very interesting to know is I think we're one of the highest, we're companies with the highest number of people with a PhD, except for, of course, research institutions, and that includes TNO. They, of course, hire a lot of PhDs, but ASML is one of these companies. I think our percentage of people hired with a PhD is around 16%, which is incredibly high. Considering how few people actually go on to pursue a PhD. Now, of course, all of the roles that I've mentioned are quite abstract, but you can imagine that you can really make a career here. So you can start in an entry-level role and you can continue growing in your career, as Giordano and Steph both demonstrated. So several years ago, I don't know exactly how many, several years ago, we've realized that our population, our employees, have a desire to continuously grow, continue learning. You don't go on to do your PhD or your master's degree if you don't enjoy learning. It was one of the things that people mentioned a lot. However, they did feel that there was only one choice, and that was people management. And so together with HR, there was a huge effort to redesign what it looks like to be successful at ASML. So we really strive to create this environment that's beneficial for employees and that provides sufficient perspective through different development opportunities. So you can make lateral moves as well. You can go in-depth, technical in-depth development as a design engineer, and then all the way through technical expert. Or if this is your passion, you can go to people and project management. So you can become a people leader. You can help develop people themselves, coaching, or project lead, and make sure that you get the opportunity to, lead high-level projects and make an impact on ASML that way. And this doesn't mean anything to you. That's why I didn't include it, but it literally means that, like most corporates, we have a ladder, which is the salary, the way salaries are built up and the way you're scaled, and we call those job grades. Most master graduates step into a job grade at job grade level 6, and you can continue making a career all the way to job grade level 12 on an in-depth technical development, which is quite unique. A lot of the times you have to move into a people management role to continue your climb up the corporate ladder. And I'm very glad to say that ASML has made it possible for people to move into very advanced roles, continue growing as a person, as a professional, all the way up to job grade 12 for people with technical expertise, and you don't have to switch to a people management role around job grade 9 or job grade 10. So what are our benefits? Now, mind you, I do want to stress and highlight that these benefits are all for our Veldhoven office, where Giordano, Steph, and myself are based. So important information. Let's start with how often you don't have to work, which is we get 40 paid days off. Now, for those of you who are from outside of the European Union, this is only holidays. If you happen to be out sick, that's completely different. You do not need to take a personal day to call in sick. This is really only holidays. And this is on top of national holidays, of which we have an average of 9. However, unfortunately, for those who are used to bank holidays, we do not catch up on those. So if Christmas falls on a Saturday or Sunday in the Netherlands, those are unpaid. So we don't make up for it then on the Monday and the Tuesday. You can see a little bike. We're a famous nation for biking. ASML is striving to promote commuting by bike. For those making the regular travel to Veldhoven office, which is for the average ASML employee 3 days a week. It is difficult to get on campus by car, and it is even more difficult to park your car, leading to very long walking distances. So we highly encourage everybody to take the bike, and there is a commuting allowance. And knowing that the commuting allowance for people who drive and for people who drive particularly starts only at more than 10 kilometers away from the office location. Now, we also have a bike plan to make it a little bit easier to cycle or to buy a decent bike. We have public transport reimbursement, of course, as well, with a very easy business card. Then we have 14 annual payments. We have the standard 12 payments for the duration of the year and a 13th month. And on top of that, we have another payment, which is the Dutch vacation money. The Dutch government decided, I think in the 70s, that we should promote people going away on vacation and spend money. That is 8% of your gross base pay annually. Then we have a lovely profit sharing bonus, but this goes until corporate grade or job grade 9. Job grades 10 and above do not have the profit sharing, but their profit sharing is capped at 20%, and over the last 5 years hasn't fallen below 17.5%. And this is, you do your job, you contribute to ASML success that way, and you are eligible for the profit sharing bonus. Now, for people relocating, we of course have a lovely relocation package, including flights and immigration for both yourself and any dependents, household goods, and housing support. What does housing support mean? That means that you get 8 weeks paid in short-term accommodation. In that time, you are required to find your own permanent accommodation. And we have all heard about the housing crisis all around Europe, but we are glad to say that 97% of the people who are relocating with ASML found a house within 7 weeks. And then once you join, particularly if you're from abroad, I highly encourage you to join employee networks such as Women at ASML, Young at ASML, Proud at ASML for those who are part of the LGBTQIA community, Green at ASML if you're passionate about the environment. But we also have photography clubs, sports clubs. There was ASML on stage recently where this picture was taken that I've used as a background. It's very welcoming. And of course, we have lots of learning opportunities, classroom learning, coaching, and online courses. And these are available to everyone. So coaching means that you have a one-on-one 90-minute sessions with a coach, a trained coach, a certified coach, and they can be both internal from ASML or external, depending on your needs. And this is available through HR, if you discuss this with your manager and this is something that you need, we will provide it and we make it happen. And I have first-hand experience in it. And I have to say it was absolutely fantastic being able to team up with someone to help progress my career. And of course, we have lean-in circles for those who think that that would advance their career as well. And lots of classroom learning. Not to mention that, of course, just like every other big corporate, you will always be forced to do a few learnings that you think are pretty pointless. Environmental health and safety, I'm looking at you. But apart from that, we do have a lot of opportunities and a lot of centers of excellence that can help you get the most out of your learning journey. So this is what I wanted to share about what ASML can do for you and for your career. And obviously the slides with the job positions are shared. And if you do have any questions about your career and you want to join ASML and you can't find anything that you find suitable, please reach out to me on LinkedIn, connect with me on LinkedIn, or send me an email to renee.malone@asml.com. And I'd be more than happy to see where your profile would be a great fit.
Fabulous. I think are we now going to open the floor for questions, or perhaps Stefan, Giordano, you have something more to add, or should we just go straight into the questions?
For me, you can go straight to questions.
No,
perfect. Thank you so much for a really informative presentation. Much appreciated. So I think I can see Michele already has his hand up. So Michele, please go ahead and ask your question.
Hello, everybody. Thank you to Giordano and his fellow for the nice presentation. I would like to ask you a question concerning your products. Do you manufacture chips or boards? And if you manufacture chips, do you use the synchrotron radiation or just normal X-rays? Thank you.
So we produce the machines that produce the dies that go into the chips. So we really produce the machines, not the chips themselves. And what we use in our most advanced machines is EUV light, around 30 nanometers light, to really do lithography to then, just like you do with an old photograph with negative, you spray a coating you want to have there, and maybe a metal for conducting lines. You spray on top of that a sort of photoresist, and then we illuminate that photoresist in our machines to then help the customer with etching away the parts that they don't need. So we produce the lithography tools to make the chips.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I think that the chemistry plays an important role in your process. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So not only for the resist, actually, for the resist, that's the lithography coating, but also in our machines, because the UV light has effect on all kinds of parts in our machines. For example, we create plasmas in our machines that then have effects on mirrors in our machines. So we have quite a lot of chemistry going on in our system as well.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have any more questions either in the chat? I just had a quick look. We don't. So I do actually have two questions. My first one is it possible for non-EU citizens to apply? What's the process like for that?
Yeah, it's absolutely possible. Do know that we have some areas in the company where you would need a US export control license. So I do say that is important to keep in mind. But in general, yes, we have a very good team, immigration team, that is very proficient at handling any visa demands.
Great, thank you. So we'll come back to my second question in a moment, because I see we've got a question from Danielle, who his microphone doesn't work. So in the chat, he would like to ask regarding optics and laser scientists, what kind of profile are you looking for, and what kind of jobs are offered for, should a PhD postdoc target in that case?
Okay, maybe René, you take it.
Yeah, well, I would say the one that I put up, the researcher camera and detectors, specifically has a preference for someone with a PhD in optics. But so does the integrator wafer stage and sensor cleaning. They require, I think, a master's degree. But there are many more. There's just a optics engineer role available. I know they're currently hiring for that. I need to check the name of the department. But yeah, let's put it like this: optics is quite a high demand background at the moment. So I would say just share your resume. And if you're a recent graduate, so if you have a master's degree, we have quite a lot of early career programs that you can sign up for. And one of them is an optics early career program. And campus recruitment actually does hiring in, it sounds disrespectful, but in batches, which basically means that we are looking for 15 people or more to join at the same time. And through the recruitment process, we discover more about your personality and your collaboration style and your interests. And we match that to different departments within ASML. So you then land on, there's no a preset role, you just land on different roles depending on your preference, personality, and background.
Maybe to add to that, so we have a lot of optics in our company, and it goes really from modeling, what kind of lens modeling do we need to do to make sure that the image on the wafer is perfect, but also, for example, what is now the impact of the light on the optical elements, what kind of changes do then happen in the lens. We also do a lot of sensor development, also in research, as you heard, we are developing sensors that are really at the cutting edge of what is possible at the moment, that we just can't buy on the market, for positioning, for light measurements, for wavefront measurements. And finally, we also do a lot of modeling for our metrology systems on how, if the image scatters back, what is it that we're seeing? Because we're going beyond the diffraction limit, and we're trying to reconstruct, for example, what is then actually on our product. So I think we really need a wide variety of optics and laser capable people.
Great, thank you. I hope that answers your question, Daniel. We have now a question from Maurice, who says, can you tell us, I'm reading it, I don't know, maybe Maurice, if you want to come on on cam. If not, I can ask the question. Can you tell us something about the other work locations in Europe or the affiliated companies?
Yeah, so what I think is very important to understand is that Berlin and Dresden have some research and developments, or some development and engineering roles, particularly in software and in Berlin Glass, the old Berlin Glass, ASML Berlin now. But if you're looking at other countries such as Belgium or France or Italy, you will see that it's mainly field service engineering. So it's actually within our customer support organization, and the same goes for roles in Ireland. Yeah, that's mainly a customer support based role, which isn't to say that this isn't a complex role and it would be very interesting for someone just beginning in ASML. Absolutely not. It's yeah, really great way to get introduced to the ASML product and solving real life problems for our customers.
We have PhDs working in customer support to really help analyze the issues we have at the customer because they can be very complex. Yeah. To try to figure out what happened in a machine with how much is now 150,000 parts, yeah. To see what goes wrong, and it can be sometimes chemistry related, it can be electrical, it can be something else combined completely. So yeah, customer support is definitely a challenging position also. If you have a
and there's actually quite a lot of our senior engineers who make the move to customer support to go to the different countries. You can continue your career, particularly also in people management within customer support on location.
So we have Yiting, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but please go ahead and ask your question. Thank you.
Sure. So during at CERN, I did actually more data analysis, data science work. I also heard, I forgot who was mentioning about the data scientist role in ASML. And can you tell us more about this data related work in the company? For example, like what kind of projects they are looking at, or what kind of person, what kind of the profile it might be fit for this?
Now, again, this is really, really broad. We, of course, have the digital and data platform group, where they are currently building a data platform that is going company-wide for all our product data. As Steph mentioned, we're so many sensors, and all of this data is collected. We're talking terabytes of data a day, daily, I think, per machine. And this is stream data, batch data. So to process all this data is very complex, and then to get information out of it requires data science. So you're then dealing with machine data, but we also have data scientists located in, for instance, sourcing and supply chain. We're currently hiring a data scientist for HR data because we have so many people and so many data points. We want to be more data driven. We have data scientists, of course, in research. Jacek Kustra's group is working on large language models, ontologies, and knowledge representation and knowledge graphs. But so is the group of Evantia Valera. So yeah, there's so many different groups where you can land. It really depends on your individual profile. So if you do happen to know anyone with very strong machine learning skills, knowledge representation, reasoning, and ontologies, please hit me up. Happy to find that perfect person for the role. But if you're more of a generically interested in it, yeah, we also have a business process improvement team that are hiring advanced data analysts to work in their projects. So it's really broad.
Yeah, it sounds good. Okay, thank you.
Great. So we have a slightly linked question from Hamid, who said he'd be happy to come on cam to ask the question.
Yes, hello everyone. Thank you for the presentation. My question is about job opportunities related to deep learning or machine learning in general. For example, applied to image, video, volumetric data analysis.
I know that this is an area of expertise that is a little bit more recent and a little bit more limited at the moment, and we don't have extremely high volumes that we're hiring in that area yet. However, I know that there was a proof of concept recently about so our application engineers in customer support spend a lot of time and a lot of resources on identifying, for instance, contaminations in our system. And the idea would be, of course, that there can be an algorithm that can filter out what the most likely source of contamination is based on visual images. And so they ran a proof of concept on that. So there is stuff happening, but again, ASML is so large that I'd have to delve into that to see if we're currently hiring in that space, but I do believe we are not. It's not to say that that won't come in the very near future. Steph, do you know anything about this area?
No, I think at the moment it's more about also predicting in metrology, so where we measure what we actually have printed on our wafers, we try to figure out what we are now actually seeing from backscattered images. And there we use now also some machine learning AI techniques to try to, based on trained data, figure out what kind of pattern do we now see, and did we now print the correct structure on the wafer. So I think that might be a place where you also your skills could be interesting, and that's indeed, I think, then it's also good to apply to roles, to the sensors posting. Then you can get redirected to the people who work on this specifically.
I also see a question about working from home, by the way. I do want to address that. We do not offer fully remote roles. We do have a hybrid policy, of course, for those who do not work in the factories or in our clean rooms. It's difficult to take a clean room home with you. So if you are in a more office job, we have as a company policy 3 days a week on site and 2 days a week working from home. But it also greatly depends on the role and how much you have to collaborate with other people, whether or not that is realistic. And if you have a very individualized role, it could be that your department allows more working from home, but we do not offer fully remote. And working from home does mean working from the Netherlands.
I have a question, perhaps, if we don't have any more for the moment in the chat. So it's a question related to your recruitment process. I know you said that people come in batches. Can you just give us a bit more information about how, the length of the recruitment process, what's expected, how many interviews, things like that? What could people expect if they apply to ASML?
So ideally, you have a 2x2 recruitment process. So ideally, you have first a screening by a talent acquisition advisor or by someone from my team, the sourcing team, where we go over basic required information. And once you pass that screening, and you're invited to an interview, you have a 2x2 system, which means that you have 2 interviews, and in each interview, you will be interviewed by 2 people. And in between the first and the second formal business interview, there is a talent assessment, which delves into your personality, your learning style, and has a cognitive reasoning test, which is both verbal, numerical, and abstract reasoning, and takes 35 minutes to complete. And you can do that from the comfort of your own home because it's online. Our first interviews are also online, and our second interview is on site. If you go for a group lead type of role, there's also an HR interview. So then there's a third and final interview with HR. Now, this is the standard process, but I, for instance, know research has a much more elaborate process where you have a like, again, I'll mention Jacek, his team, because I work with him a lot. You have first an interview with Jacek, then you have a machine learning interview, you have a systems engineering interview, you have a research presentation in front of an audience, a little bit like when you defend your thesis kind of setting. And you have a 30-minute check-in with the department manager. Our business process improvement team, for instance, has a first hiring manager check, then a business case, a presentation, and 2 interviews with different group leads. So again, a very different process. So I'd love to say that it's a quick, easy, painless process, but depending on where you apply in the organization, it could be rather lengthy but very thorough, comparable to the likes of Meta and Google, who also don't take recruitment very lightly. Now, when you're talking about the batch recruitment, which is our campus or early careers hiring, that is usually a day or 2-day event online, and does include, for instance, a collaboration game where you are in a small team of other applicants, and you have to figure out solutions in a game setting, and you will have individual short kind of how do you say that again? Matched up interviews where you are quickly introducing yourself and being introduced to a different department. And after that, there's an evaluation, and 2 days later, or maximum 5 business days later, every candidate knows whether or not they're going to get a contract from ASML. But if you go through another kind of process, it can be quite lengthy and can take up to 6 weeks in total to complete, from moment that you start your application to the moment a TAA informs you that you get the contract.
Okay, thanks very much for that very detailed response.
Sorry.
No, it's good. It's interesting to know the different processes behind each of the different profiles. We now have a question from Giovanni. So Giovanni says that during his PhD, he's been developing firmware for FPGA-based boards. Are you actually looking for these types of skills? Are there any job opportunities related to firmware development? Thank you.
I don't know if there are currently any opportunities available that look at René, but indeed we do make our own firmware for different modules in the machine. For example, for the lens in the DPV machines, we have people working on the firmware of our mechatronic systems, for example, and then we need FPGAs to do that. So we definitely do work on that. I don't know if we have currently vacancies, but I would just look for it on the website for FPGA.
Yeah, we do. We do. Relatively senior roles. So if you're a bit more junior, I would say if you fit the description about 70%, apply. And that is particularly, and this is calling out all underrepresented minorities here, including women. If you think you fill approximately 70% of the criteria, any 70% of the criteria, please apply.
Fantastic. So we actually, this is amazing timekeeping on your part as well, because we're coming up to midday. We always start and we finish on time. So we do have one last question. If you, we can squeeze in one last one. I think we've just got one. Yes. Nazar, would you like to come on cam and ask your question, or do you want me to read it for you?
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
So I was curious about security part of working at ASML, since it has become quite important in geopolitics in recent years. Are there any special restrictions or monitorings for protecting intellectual property of ASML that is applied to the workers?
Information security is, of course, very important to us. So you might have read in the news in the past that we were victim to a few cases where people stole information from us. And that's something we don't want, of course. So we have, of course, an information security department that helps us to prevent this from happening. And then there are security measures from simple things like not being allowed to have a USB anymore in your laptop to transfer data. That's just simply not allowed anymore. And we have specific systems to transfer information from one place to the other. We call it ASML large file transfer. So there are policies in place to protect information security to prevent this.
Thank you. So that, I think, wraps it up for today. So a very big thank you to René, Steph and Giordano for taking part in today's virtual company showroom for ASML.